I'm Todd Alpeter with Vantage Group, and I'm going to go over using the Vantage Group website to respond to a customer's quote. So let's jump right in. If you have a customer who is utilizing the Vantage Group's punch-out system to place orders, you'll occasionally find the need that you may need to respond to a quote or create a quote for them in the system. And this is actually a very simple process. First thing you do is you go out to the Vantage Group website. Once you're at the Vantage Group website, you can go ahead and log in. If you do not have a login, you can request one fairly easily by clicking on the Sign Up Now link right here on the website. Once you log into the member area of the Vantage Group website, you'll see that there are several icons available to do different things, such as look up invoices, queries, reportings, but what we're going to focus on here is the Manage Quotes icon. So we'll go ahead and click that. And what this will bring up is a list of quotes that are waiting to be responded to. So you can see there's quite a few of them here. So before I jump into responding to a quote, I want to show you one other feature of the site that we'll be using actually a little bit later in the demonstration, and that's a parts list. What a parts list is it's a grouping of parts that you can create to make working with quotes and responding to quotes easier. For instance, if you're doing VMI at a customer, for example, you could load all of those parts into a parts list. I'll show you a quick example of how one works. I'm going to click on parts list up here in the quoting session, and I don't have any created here, so I'm going to make a new one. Once I've created my parts list, I need to add some items into my part list. So I do that by clicking on the part list I've created, and I'm going to click the Add Items to List button. I can now utilize the drop downs here to add items based on manufacturer and part number. I type in a manufacturer and a part number, I click the search button, and my results are displayed below. If I click on the UPC hyperlink, it's going to add that item to my part list. And you can see that the only thing that is editable here is the quantity. So if I want to put a standard quantity that is going to be ordered of this item, I can fill that in, and it will be added to my parts list with that quantity. I'm going to add one other item here real quick. For this ideal item, I'm going to add it, but I'm going to add a standard quantity of 100 on this one. So now that I've gone ahead and created my parts list here, I'm going to go ahead and return back to my quotes area, and we'll use this part list a little bit later in the demonstration. In the example here, I have a customer who's created a quote in the punch-out system, and they're waiting for me to respond it. So I'm going to click on that and see what it has on it. So I do that by clicking on the quote number. Once I click on the quote and open it up, I can see the items that are included within that quote. So when I look at this particular quote here, I can see that this first item is an ideal wire nut. And one of the things I notice is the national price column is filled in here. What this is telling me is that Vantage Group has a special pricing agreement put in place for this customer, and there's a national price established. So I can use that price. I can also revise and go lower with that price should I need to for some reason, but in most cases you're going to probably just want to use the national price that is provided. By clicking the Use National Price button up here at the top of the quote, it will fill in the national price for all of the items that Vantage has already established a price, preventing you from having to reprice it. This square D item, for example, I'm going to have to go ahead and I'm going to have to put a price on this because it does not have a national price. So to do that, I hit the Edit button, which opens up this line item, and I can go ahead and I can change the quantity as well as I can change the price of this particular item. By clicking Update, I will update the row. You can now see that our square D item also has a price on it. Now this next item was a write-in item, so all that they've told me is this is a Bussmann 3 amp fuse. Well, I know the part number for this Bussmann 3 amp fuse, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to substitute this item with the correct part number. You can see that it comes up with a price because there's a national price for this one. I can change that price if I want and substitute the item. It is now showing us that this item was substituted. I can return to quote. My substituted item is highlighted in blue. The reason why we do this is because we want to make it very clear to the end user that they have substituted an item. For example, if you gave a Mersen for a Bussmann or a Appleton for a Crouse-Hinds type of scenario, we want to make sure it's very apparent to the customer that we're providing something other than what they originally asked for. In this last case, I've got a square D panel board. Well, there is really no part number that I can assign to this since this is an engineered product, but I do have a price that I can give the customer on it. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this one and just manually price it. You'll see now that because I'm manually editing this item, I have a lot more fields that are actually available to me. So I'm going to put in a price, we're going to leave the quantity at 1. I'm going to put in a price of $200. And one of the things that I have to do now is I have to categorize this item. Now the easiest way to do that is you can just come to this quick picks box and you can choose one of these pre-established categories. So for instance, this one, I'm going to pick a panel board. If you choose, you can also manually categorize this product by picking from these 4 boxes below here. 95% of the time, you'll find what you're looking for in the quick pick list, and you should use that. Occasionally, you will have to build this out. I know this isn't a fun process to do with this categorization, but unfortunately, in the world of e-commerce nowadays, these items need to be categorized in order to be accepted back into the customer system. So it's a necessary evil, unfortunately. I've put a price on here. I've picked a category, so I'm going to go ahead and update the item. And you can now see I've got all of my items priced here. Everything is good to go. One other option that I could do, if I edit an item, and I'll edit this one again, I could check this no quote box. So for instance, if I was not going to be able to provide this square D panel board, say for instance I wasn't authorized for that line, I could check the not quoted, and that will tell the customer that I'm not going to quote it. I can also delete a line item if I want to. I'm going to cancel out of this because we do want to quote this. So the one last thing I have to do on my quote here is I just need to set an expiration date. The expiration date is very important because the customer will be able to order or reorder this quote as often as they want until the expiration date. So if you're quoting something that you want to give them a price that's going to be fixed for 6 months or so, you can set a quote expiration date out 6 months or so. But in the case of our little quote here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this good until the end of July. I click Set Expiration Date. You can now see that there's an expiration date set for the quote. And at this point in time, I'm ready to go ahead and submit my quote. Should there be any problem with the quote, a message will appear up at the top of the screen in yellow telling you what needs to be fixed. For instance, if you didn't set an expiration date or if you have items that weren't priced. So once that happens, your quote has been submitted to the customer. You can actually see the status of it now is quoted. Should you need to come in here and revise this quote, you can do that up until the point where the customer actually orders the quote. By clicking on the quotes menu item here, I can return to my quotes screen. You can see that the quote 7712 no longer appears in the list because its status is no longer waiting on quote, it is now quoted. To view your different statuses, you can change the drop down here and click the Show by Status button. So you can now see that 7712 has been quoted. You can also look and see when the customer has viewed the quotes, and actually if they've gone ahead and added it to their cart and ordered it, you can see those statuses as well. So usually you're just going to be working on the waiting on quote status. One of the other things that we can do with the quote system is actually create a quote for our customer, rather than our customer going and creating the quote in the punch-out catalog and sending it through to you. If they fax you over a bill of material or something like that, you can actually go into the system, create a quote for them that they can order through their punch-out catalog. The big advantage of this is it makes it very easy for the end user to place the order. So you may find that you have customers that want to do business with you this way. So hypothetically, if somebody goes ahead and faxes you over a bill of material, you can log into the Vantage Group website, into the member area again, go into quotes, and you can click this create a new quote link on your menu bar. First thing it's going to ask you is what customer are you creating this quote for. I'm going to create it for the sample customer. It'll ask you which location, and then actually it will ask you which individual. Once you fill out those 3 boxes, you can hit the create a quote, and you can see you have essentially the same screen we were working with before. The only difference is it was blank. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to add some items to this quote, and this is where my parts list that we worked on in the very beginning of this demonstration comes into play. I can go ahead and add items right from a list, and I'm going to pick my sample list here, and I'm going to add these items. This square D breaker, I'm going to add 5 of them. So I put a 5 in the quantity, and I hit the cart, and it tells me that, hey, 5 of those items were added to the quote. The ideal wire nuts, I'm going to add those as well. I don't need to put a quantity in here this time because I want the standard quantity of 100. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the shopping cart next to that, and you can see that 100 of those items were added. I'm going to click the back to quote button, and you can see that those 2 items were added. I can also go ahead and add another item into this quote if I want, and I do that just by clicking the add item button singularly. And once I find my proper product, I can go ahead and add that item as well. And again, as I showed before, I can change the price should I choose to do that. Oh, you can see here, I didn't fill in a quantity, so it yelled at me and told me that there's a quantity required. I'll fix that error and continue on. So I want to go ahead and add one more item onto this quote. This time I'm going to add something like a panel board that doesn't have a established part number because it's an engineered product. So I'm going to go ahead and click this I can't find the part button. This gives me the ability to go ahead and type in and pick whatever information I want to pass through to this for this item. So I'm going to pick square D. Again, I have to pick my category from my list here. So I'll pick up panel board again. And I can put a comment on here if I want. And I'm going to go ahead and add the item. And you can see that that item has been added to the cart. So I've gone ahead. All of my items are not priced here. So you can see that I've got the bottom 2 items priced, but the top 2. If I try to submit this quote right now, it's going to tell me that these items are not quoted or are not priced. So they're highlighted in red here, showing me which ones are my issue. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to edit this item. And in this case, I'm going to set a price of 8 cents each. And on my square D circuit breaker, I'm going to come and I'm going to add a price of $6 for that. Now that I have all the items priced, I have to set my expiration date. and then I can submit this quote. So I've created this quote and submitted it to the customer. The customer can now easily go into his punch-out system, look up this quote, hit add to cart, and turn this into an order real quick. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this short demonstration of using the Vantage Group website to respond to a customer's quote.